Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Games New and Old Digital. I am David Rodriguez, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Powkiddy RGB30. Now, I'm going to do the unboxing here first. Then once I put it through its paces, I'll do the rest of the video and kind of show you, how exactly it runs and what it can do and whatnot. Now, there's a variety of colors of these. They've come out with some more recent ones. So as you can see, they had black, blue, and white. I actually got the purple one because I wanted it to stand out from other devices that I have. So I figured that would be a good color. They also have a new yellow one that looks pretty cool. I think there might be one more color I'm forgetting, but all in all, pretty nice. And I ended up getting a really good deal on this on a 4th of July sale on AliExpress through Powkiddy's store there. Because usually the system itself, without an extra memory card, anything like that, is right about $80 at the MSRP price. And I got the system along with a memory card that has 128 gigs of storage with some games already preloaded, and that only cost me $75. So overall, I mean, I can't really complain about that price. So good deal if you are not wanting to pay that full price. Deals do pop up from time to time on there, so definitely keep your eyes peeled. Okay, so there's that little foam thing to protect it. Kind of got a little lifted up here, but that's probably okay. All right. Or maybe that's just how it is in the box, because this is lifted too. There's probably, I'm assuming, a charging wire under here. Yeah, there we go. Charging wire, some instruction. I mean, wow. This is a very tiny instruction manual. Yeah, there's almost nothing to this, but that's okay. I don't think it's going to be too complicated to do. It does show your hotkeys, or whatever you want to call them, hot buttons over here, as far as, if you want to do save state and that sort of thing. That'll help you out with that. All right, but let's put that away. Let's get to the actual system itself. All right. This is actually a little bit bigger than I pictured, which is not a bad thing. I think that's really cool. So let me tell you a little bit about this system. So it does have a 4-inch screen, and it has a resolution of 720 by 720, which is pretty nice. So its CPU is an ARM quad-core 1.8 gigahertz high-performance open-source chip, and it has 1 gig of RAM. It comes with I believe, a 16 gig card, which is going to have your operating system on there. And then mine, as I mentioned, has a 128-bit card in here that'll have all the games on it. If you look at the bottom, you have 2 USB-C ports there. And then on the top, there is a mini HD out. You have your volume buttons here. You have power button, and then looks like probably like a function type button. And the back, pretty plain, nothing too amazing about it, but it's fine. Let's kind of try out these buttons and see how they sound. I'm going to move my microphone so it's pointed more towards the device here so you can hear it better. Although that will probably mean my voice is quieter, but that's fine. Okay. So the buttons feel nice, not super loud, which is great. D-pad. It's a little clicky, which it doesn't necessarily bother me. It just is what it is. Start and select, pretty loud, but not horrifically so. The shoulder buttons are in an L1, R2, and L2. About the same as the face buttons, I would say, as far as the sound, so nothing too crazy there. The volume, a little bit loud, not terrible again. One thing to note that I've heard other people mention is that the volume up is on the left side and the volume down is on the right, which is a little reverse to what I'm used to, I think, but that's okay. The power button and the function button, I assume that's a function button. I could be wrong. It says R. Maybe it's something I'm just not aware of, but anyway, that's fine. Those all sound good. If you push in the thumbsticks, kind of clicky, but that's fine. Thumbsticks feel nice. We'll see. I don't believe these are Hall thumbsticks. I don't think so. I don't believe it has a partial push. I think, if I remember right, if you push to the right, you're going all the way to the right, but I'll definitely test that so I can tell you for sure. You have 2 front speakers here, which is nice. I like that placement. It doesn't look like my hands will get in the way of that. If I held it like this, like a weirdo, that might happen. Now, as far as that power goes, I'll admit I'm no expert on all these different chipsets. From what I've heard, is this can run everything up through PlayStation 1 really without any difficulty. It can handle some N64 games, it can handle some Dreamcast games, and it can handle the occasional PSP game, but that's a little more challenging for it. I don't know if this is a system that I'd really play a lot of PSP on anyway, just because PSP does have that wide screen, so it'll be a little bit different. But I think for those other systems that have the 4:3 aspect ratio, I think this will be just fine, because I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of just blank space on here. All right, enough of me babbling about all that. I have played this thing quite a lot, put it through its paces, and I have some opinions on it. Before I actually get to the system, though, I want to talk about the little SD card that came with it. Actually, this is the one that had the games on it, because as I think I mentioned, I had one that was preloaded with games. So this is the 128 gigabyte card. It also came with a 16 gigabyte card that had the OS. And the reason I want to talk about it here, we'll put this is more interesting. The reason why I want to talk about it is because about 3 or 4 days after I got this, it stopped working. The little LED light would turn on, but nothing would happen on the screen at all. And so I started researching that and figuring out what might be going on. I found out that some people had issues with the battery in this thing, like it just wouldn't charge or die really quickly. So I reached out to Powkiddy, because I bought this from their store on AliExpress. And they got back to me really quickly, to their credit. And they said I need to flash that 16 gigabyte card, or if they said if that was too much of a problem, that they could send me a different card. And this little card is from a company called like SEAPIY, SEAPIY, which I'm not familiar with. And I had heard people suggest that you get a SanDisk or a Samsung card and just use that instead. And so I ended up doing that. I'm getting a 16 gigabyte Samsung card. And while this had the Jealous operating system on it initially, that is no longer being updated. They've actually moved on to one called Rocknix. So I installed that, and it's almost exactly the same. The only difference I found is in Rocknix, there's not as many options to adjust like the color of the picture here. And I'm not sure why that is, but since this is going to be continually updated, I have a feeling we'll probably see that somewhere down the road. Now, one other thing you might notice is that the directional pad and the buttons are not what you saw initially. These are not the standard control pad and buttons that came with the system. And I'm going to get to that and why I changed a little bit later. A part of that was just aesthetically. I like this color with the lavender. So, I went that route. But there's more to it than that, and I'll talk about that a little bit down the way here. Now, getting back to this card, so this is the one that came preloaded with the games. And, I got a good deal on the system plus the card of the game, so I went in and did it. And I got to tell you, unless you are completely without a ROM library and you desperately don't want to go looking for ROMs, I probably wouldn't do this. I mean, the things on there worked. There wasn't really a problem with that. But one, it is that cheaper card, so I probably would have to replace it anyway, which is what I did. And then also the organization of them was really weird. Like certain systems would have a number like 001, 002, etc. in front of the titles, but then the titles were in an alphabetical order. So if you were looking for a specific game, good luck. Like, you have to scroll through who knows how many games to find it. I didn't like that. There was also a lot of Chinese and I think Brazilian versions of games on there, which is fine if you know those languages, but I don't. And so it was a lot of stuff I really just didn't need. So I ended up, saving the games onto a little bit bigger SanDisk card, like a naming system that I could understand and that made sense to me, and then adding my own collections as well. So I probably wouldn't go this route again unless you really just don't want to search for ROMs and you don't have any. I get that, and there's still plenty on here that did work and was good. It's just you had to sift through a lot of junk to do it, and the organization was frankly terrible. So before we get to much else, let's talk about the sound on this. I actually wasn't expecting anything real great here as far as the sound, but I'm actually really impressed with it. I have it really, really low right now, but let me turn it up. It gets quite loud. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit here, but it does get kind of distorted when you get to like the really high end or high level of the sound, but I probably wouldn't use that much anyway. Like it's really quite loud. I can't imagine needing it to be that loud. So the sound it puts out is fantastic. I did test this connected to a TV, which you can connect via a HDMI mini cable. I just got a converter from my regular HDMI and stuck that on there, and it works fine. The home screen here takes up the full screen of your TV, but then when you go into your games, it will, scale it to the appropriate size for those. So no real trouble there. I did have a problem where a couple times it like froze on the menu screen when I was doing that. I'm not really sure why. It doesn't do that all the time, and I haven't had a problem with it during games. Anyway, maybe it will down the road. I'm going to flip through here and show you some of the collections that I added, just so you have an idea. There is, of course, favorites. Then an option to do a vertical arcade collection. And that's really cool because this screen, being a perfect square, works really well for these vertical arcade games. So it pulled all these for me. I didn't have to tell it which ones to stick in there. I don't know if it captured every single one or not, but I think there's a good chance that it probably did. It's got the arcade stuff, Final Burn Neo. I have the 3 basic Atari systems. I added Jaguar in there. Got the WonderSwan and Wonderful Color, Capcom, PlayStation 1, 2, and 3. I put Amiga games on there, Pico 8, Odyssey 2, MSX, MSX2, PC Engine, Game & Watch. That was on there when I got it. Super weird. I don't know. I don't know if people are like super nostalgic about that they'd want to play this over like everything else on this system, but there it is. Yeah, the family computer. One thing that was cool about the games that they sent me is that it did have a lot of Nintendo games that were translated. So they're Famicom games that were in Japanese, but I don't know. I'm guessing they're fan translations. So that's really neat because there's a lot of, I'll get in here. There's a lot of games on here that, I probably wouldn't see otherwise, which is great. It looks like their boxes, some of them are vertical. Oddly, there's a Biohazard. Resident Evil is on this thing, which is kind of mind-blowing. I haven't messed with it. You can see it looks pretty basic here, but that's really neat. I think that's a cool feature to have. So there's that. I like that it shows you a little video here. There's also ratings. I'm not sure where these ratings came from, but some people apparently rated this thing so you can see if it's thought of as a good game or not. So we got Nintendo, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, Virtual Boy, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS. I added the 3DO. One of the things I like about this is the other handheld system that I have that I use is the AYN Odin 2, which is a very powerful system. However, I assume this is probably just a user error more than anything else. I could not get 3DO games to work on there. I tried the different emulators on the system. I tried putting the files in there in different ways. I could not get them to run at all, and they do run on this. I'll be showing you that a little bit later. Atomus Wave, again, didn't work on the Odin 2 that I have. Sega CD, they would, not always, but they would usually play, but the music wouldn't be there. Again, I tried arranging the files in there every way I could possibly figure out, and I just did not have luck. So far, I haven't had any trouble with them working on here, which is great. I have some Saturn stuff on there, which we'll get to a little bit later. Dreamcast, Naomi, Neo Geo, Neo Geo CD, Neo Geo Pocket, PlayStation 1, PSP, ScumVM. I don't know much about Easy RPG, but I am curious about it because I love RPGs, so hopefully I can figure that out. But that's what I've added, and there are other systems that it can play that I just haven't put on here because I don't have any real nostalgia for them. But I might try them just to get an idea of what it's like. So I'm not going to show you the really basic like 16-bit and lower systems. Pretty much everything runs those. I've had no problem running them on here. They're beautiful. I like them. They work really great on here. The handheld things like the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, any of those that have the more square screen works fantastic on here. You can apply shaders to those Game Boy games if you want to, so it looks like the original screen. Personally, I thought that green pea soup screen was always kind of a drawback, so I just play them in black and white, but if you want that old school feel, you can certainly do that. So let me get into some of these systems, and I'll show you how they work on this. All right, here we have F-Zero. You probably noticed a little skipping when it was getting into the game here, but nothing too severe. I'm really bad at this course, by the way, so you're going to see a lot of me crashing. But yeah, it runs really nice, and I was worried that you couldn't do like small movements with the sticks, but you absolutely can. So yeah, it's really good. You can see it's running just beautifully. No real problems here at all. I'm very impressed with this. Now, some N64 games are not going to work great on here. You may experience like some choppiness or just some slowdown. Oh, this is where I always get my butt kicked. Oh boy. But in general, though, it runs a lot of them pretty well. I think about 75% of the collection is supposed to work. Yeah, I'm running into everything. I suck at this. So there you have it as far as that goes. it's a pretty nice system to play these on. I don't have any complaints about it really, other than, you know, the few games that probably are not going to work great. All right, I have a very small Nintendo 3DS collection on here. Let me show you that. Okay, so right now, you can see that this has got, like, you know, sort of the stacked display. So this is on the default emulator they have in there. And you might be able to tell the music sounds a little skippy. That's actually not the biggest problem. Right now, I'm holding the trigger button up here to keep it in the space, because when I let go of it, it does that. And you're supposed to be able to click it and just have it reconfigure how the screens are, but I can't actually get it to stay whole screen unless I hold on to it. Now, there are other emulators on here that you can use that'll either have them be the side-by-side or the stacked version. You cannot flip between them or get to like a single screen mode, which is what this is supposed to let you do. But as you can see, it's kind of a disaster. And I don't know if I just need to update this emulator or what the issue is. That being said, I'm not really likely to play DS on here anyway. The system doesn't have a touchscreen, so there's going to be some games that just don't play well. And it's a really small picture for that system. You know, you're really only be playing on half of what you see here. I just don't know if it's a system I would go for. Some of the games do run fine. I was trying to play Need for Speed Underground 2, I think it was. That ran okay, but still, this issue. Sometimes it does come up like this, and I don't have to push the button, but if I try to switch it, it pulls this nonsense again. So I don't think it's ideal for the system, even if this did work great, but there you have it. All right, so here I am playing Road Rash on the 3DO. 3DO is another system where some games are going to work just fine, and some are not. However, I haven't had any trouble with Road Rash so far, which is great. I played some Gex, played some Dragon's Lair. All those ran really smooth. As you can tell, it's looking great. No real issues here. However, there are some games that do have problems. I'll show you one right now. Okay. Here we're playing Who Shot Johnny Rock. I figured this is a good time as any to play some of these FMV games. And usually this gets really skippy, so we'll see if it does here. Yeah, what is she saying? Nobody knows. Yeah, I'm gonna die. But
let's give that a listen.
The point is, for these FMV games, like, you kind of need to be able to watch the video and have it work. And it just doesn't in this case. So, too skippy, can't really follow the story like that. Some of these games are just not going to function. I don't think I'm probably really missing out on much with this one, but I thought I'd give it a try.
He always wanted to be.
All right, so here we have a KO Flying Squadron on the Sega CD, which is, again, I could not get this to run on the AYNO did too, which is a much more powerful system. But, you know, again, that could easily be user error. I'm sure some people have gotten the Sega CD to work fine on their system, but I tried everything I could think of to get it to go, and I just didn't have good luck. However, I have had no problem so far with Sega CD games on here. I certainly haven't tried every game out there, but of the ones I've tried, they've all worked great. So can't really complain about that. Very happy to finally get these games in a portable that I can play. All right, here I'm playing Proteus on the Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn's one of the systems that's just really hard to emulate. And this game in particular didn't work on my AYNO 2. I mean, you could play it, but it had, it had weird graphical glitches at the top and bottom of the screen that I just couldn't seem to get rid of. So this plays it fine though. So I can't complain too much. Now, that being said, this is not going to handle all Sega Saturn games well. Some of them, you're going to have a lot of slowdown and skippiness. If they're, you know, very graphically intensive, it's probably not the place you want to be playing them. And, you know, some games just have trouble with certain emulators. I'll show you what I mean. All right, one of the games I have on this emulator is the criminally underrated Baku Baku Animal. It's just a really cool little puzzle game. And I could not get it to really get into the gameplay with the basic emulator that it has on here. When I go into it, it could kind of do the opening cinematic, but it'd be very, very choppy and skippy. But then it would never go to the gameplay. Luckily, you can go in and you can change which emulator it's choosing to use. So let me show you what I get having tried a few. All right, and with a different emulator, this plays fine. Now, it is a little weird because, it's not a square screen that I would usually have. And instead of having a black bar at the top and bottom and having the image be in the middle, it kind of is just pushed all the way to the top until I've got this kind of giant black bar at the bottom. But that being said, it works. I mean, I can play this game, and honestly, after a couple of minutes of this, I sort of forget about the weirdness of what the screen is doing. So, yeah, I can't really complain about that. It works all right. And again, I'm not going to be playing probably Knights on here or like the Panzer Dragoon games. Those are just not going to go real well. But games like this or other 2D games, I think will work just fine. By the way, if you haven't tried this, definitely do, especially if you can play it multiplayer. It's a fantastic game multiplayer. Single player, not quite as good, but still pretty fun. All right, so here we've got Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 1, and I've had no trouble with any PlayStation games so far. Again, I haven't tried everything, the whole collection, because that would take I'm very bad at this. That would take a very long time. I should probably get on the road. But yeah, everything I've tried so far has worked just great. No issues whatsoever. And Gran Turismo is a fairly demanding game. I mean, it had really incredible graphics for the time. So, yeah, I mean, it's doing a lot better than my driving is, for sure. But it handles everything really well. I've had, again, no issues whatsoever. I haven't experienced any slowdown. Hopefully there just won't be any. But, yeah, if you can run this, I think it could probably run most anything on the system with little to no difficulty. You can use the sticks if you like on the games that use them. However, if it's like this one that I believe came out before the sticks did, no go as far as that goes, but that's fine. All right, so this is PSP. I'm playing one of the Dynasty Warriors games. This is another system where, some games are going to work fine, but some aren't. And probably, if you go with the really demanding stuff, it's not going to be a very playable experience. I don't think I'd recommend playing God of War on here or anything. Now, I don't know that this is the system that I would use to play this either, just because of the screen being square. Kind of makes the gameplay screen really small. Another thing that I don't like about this on this system is, and this might be something that's changeable, but if you actually press in the thumbstick, it gets you to your save state menu. And I've realized that I pushed that thumbstick on accident way more than I thought I would. So it's not really the greatest system to play these on, but if that's not your main goal in getting a system, it's nice to have as a little bonus. You might find a few games that you like to play on here. Just probably wouldn't be my go-to for the PSP stuff. All right, so this is Game Boy Advance. I'm playing Banjo Pilot, which I didn't even know was a game that existed. But yeah, it runs great. I haven't had any issue with any of the Game Boy Advance games. Oops, except for my ability to play them. It's, it's a little kind of like Flying Mario Kart clone, but they will run smooth. I think because the Game Boy Advance screen is not like incredibly wide, it's just a bit wide. I think it still works great on the system. I think your field of view is not too small, and I'm not really bothered by the black bars at the top and bottom. I think there's a way to get bezels on here. I don't know that'll probably bother, but yeah, I think Game Boy Advance is a great system to play on this one. All right, before I get to Dreamcast, I am going to talk to you about why I have this control pad and these buttons, because you might decide that something like this is necessary for you too. Now, I went on Etsy to find a case, and I found this little case. Let me zoom it out a little bit. And it matches pretty well, not perfectly, but the color of the system. And by the way, I have no connection with the people who make this, or the person who makes this, but I do need to kind of use them to talk about this. The case is really good. It holds it really firmly in place. It's got these kind of like rubber knobs in here to make sure that it doesn't slide around a bunch. Great case. I could have gotten it with a port for the charger, which I should have done. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. I also got the AGNO. That is, all games new and old done in the lowercase uppercase thing, like our New World Order inspired logo, which if you're interested in, by the way, we have t-shirts and other kinds of merchandise on our store that's linked in the bio, and you could get one for yourself. It would really help the channel. But enough shilling my merchandise. In addition to having cases and lots of different colors on there, they also had the directional pads and buttons. And one of the claims that was made in that Etsy shop is that this directional pad gets rid of the false diagonals. And that's super necessary. I'll show you why. So here I'm playing Gremlins 2. It is not a great game, but nonetheless, I was playing it. And right here, I have this moving platform that I have to jump straight across to. It's very easy to line yourself up. And with the original pad, I would press left, and every time I jump, it'd do that. It would go diagonal every time. I tried over and over again to get it not to, and I couldn't. So the false diagonals were actually a really big issue. Now, oops. And also I just suck at jumping, but it's not that I'm mad that I wouldn't be able to play Gremlins 2, but a lot of these retro games require some pretty precise movements. And when you don't have those, it makes some of these games absolutely unplayable. And Gremlins 2 is an example of that. Now, there are mods you can do to the original stuff where you use a piece of electrical tape, which I could have done, but since I saw these buttons and I saw that promise of the directional pad on there, I went ahead and did it. The buttons actually were perfectly fine on the system, but, these match, so I got them. And, that did deal with the problem of the false diagonals pretty much entirely. I haven't noticed having any issue with them so far. So, that's something that you're going to need to do. Either get a different control pad that can promise that, like this one did, or do the little mod. And there's plenty of videos online on how to do that. Now, I don't like having to open up electronics and mess with them. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't like it. I was sweating bullets the entire time I was doing this. And I know that this is a minor modification. Some people will probably have no issue with it. But I didn't really like that. I felt like I had to do that to make some of these games work. And one thing I was worried about is with the directional pad as it was before, it was very easy to pull off moves in, like a Street Fighter game, for instance. And I was worried that this pad would actually take that away. But with that being said, let me go into Dreamcast and I'll show you what I found as far as that goes. Okay, so here I am playing the greatest 2D fighting game of all time. That's Marvel vs. Street Fighter 2, or Marvel's Capcom 2, excuse me. And I'm able to pull off the Hadouken pretty much as easily as I ever have been able to on any controller, including the original Nintendo or Super Nintendo. I couldn't pull it off as well as I can here. It's really working great. And I don't have any issue. I miss sometimes because that's me and that's my game playing ability. But it's comparatively very easy. So I have no complaints there. Now, one thing I think I might have mentioned when I reviewed the Odin 2 was that I had this on there and it runs it, but it wouldn't accept both buttons being pressed at the same time. It wouldn't read that. And so that made this game kind of pointless because if you played it, you know that tagging your partners in and out requires hitting two buttons. And it's a pretty big part of the strategy of the game. And it wouldn't work. No matter what I tried, it would not work. So I'm happy to report that this one, not really a problem. I can tag in and out pretty much at will as long as I hit those buttons right. It all works out great. So this really is a fantastic experience playing this game on here. Every once in a while, I do get some weird, kind of choppy slowdown in this game, and you're going to have that in the occasional Dreamcast game, just because it is kind of a more powerful system. But overall, I really have no complaints about how this goes. I'm not really too bothered by that little bit of slowdown. It usually does not last long, maybe 5 seconds or so, and then it goes back to being good again. So no problem there. This is honestly, this is the thing that I most hoped. This game is the thing I most hoped that this system would be able to do well. And I'm really glad that it can. Okay, I did want to show you the a vertical arcade game. This is Arcadia. I don't think I've ever played it before, but it's a shooter, as you can tell. And it's a vertical oriented game. So it runs really great. You don't have to worry about setting up so that you can play it sideways and be controlling or holding the controller or the system awkwardly. It really works great just as is if I don't run into bullets. You're seeing how bad I am at games is what you're seeing in this video. But we're not reviewing my gameplay. We're reviewing the system. But yeah, I really like this. I have probably all of these games on my Odin 2, but I'd much rather play them here because it takes up a good amount of the screen. It just feels better, even though it runs really the same at the end of the day. Okay, now I'm showing you it has this screensaver, and it'll just go for a few seconds on the videos for any of the games that you have in your system. And yeah, it'll just pick randomly as far as I can tell and show you a little video. And that's really cool because, you know, if you just get a big collection of ROMs that you didn't really like know what they were, but you're like, sure, why not? I'll put these on my system. This is a great way to get an idea of what some of these games are about. And, you know, I put in the 256 gigabyte card in here. So I've got hordes of games on here. Probably really most of them I'm not even familiar with. So this is really a great way to find out about games. And one of the other cool things I like is if you see one that seems interesting to you, you could press start and it'll basically load that game up. So you can try it right away. If you see something excellent that, you know, it looks like it might intrigue you, it's no real issue to get that game going. This is very slow, this game. Oh my God. This is on the MSX. So yeah, it's, you know, not a real powerful system. And man, I am not used to the pace of this game. I've never played it. I don't even remember what it was called, but yeah, wow, this is slow. Oh, well, that sucked. Yeah, but anyway, but that is a neat feature that you can just jump into one of these games that you see and start playing right away. I think that's really, really cool. It's a great way to discover games that you might just overlook otherwise. All right, it's time for final thoughts on the system. You'll notice that my system's getting lighter and darker depending on what's on the screen. So it is actually a very light lavender color, but it may not always be obvious in these images. But my final thoughts on this thing, I really enjoy playing like the older retro games on this. You know, 16-bit and earlier is fantastic. PlayStation runs really smooth. I don't know if I'll play PlayStation games more on this than on the Odin 2, but you know, if you're looking for one system, this one handles the PlayStation games really, really well. Like I have no complaints about how it handles. Since I have it on both, I'll probably go to the other one. But that being said, I probably don't have every single PlayStation game I want on the Odin 2, so I could probably play them on this one instead. So does that really well. I probably personally am not going to use this for PSP or the Nintendo DS. I just don't think that, I just don't think it's a great experience. It's not horrible, but it's just not what I'm going to use this system for. So if that's what you're looking for, I might want to go somewhere else. Now, as I believe I mentioned at the top, the MSRP on this is about $80, and that's with no games. And I got a really good deal on this, where it got, you know, the system plus the 128 gigabyte card, and it was, I believe, like $75 altogether, which is really nice. You know, if you need that card, that's great. But here's the thing, as far as what kind of deal this is, as good as this system is, as well as it runs things, I'm very disappointed that they use a really cheap SD card for their operating system. You know, I shouldn't have it die out on me, or I don't know exactly what happened to it, but it shouldn't be unusable to me in like 3 or 4 days. That's crazy. So, you know, a replacement card is not that much. I think, you know, for a 16 gigabyte one, you're probably going to spend $10. But, you know, if you want to be sure that your system's going to keep working, you're adding that to the price. You're going to be adding $10 to the cost of this. And you have to be comfortable transferring the data from their card onto this one, or downloading like the updated OS Rocknix, which I recommend anyway, just because that's when they're going to be updating. There are a lot of tutorial videos on the internet on how to do that, so I'm not going to go into that here, but it's not really hard, but that's going to really depend on your comfort with, you know, working with computers and all that sort of thing. Now, a bigger issue for me is that directional pad, the one that came with the system that you get tons of false diagonals for. On a system that specializes in like really the older retro games, all of which pretty much used a D-pad, that's really not great. You need some precise movements. If you know these retro games, they're oftentimes a lot harder than modern day games. You cannot be messing up your movements, you know, like half of them, like you need to figure out how to be perfect on a level to get through it. And you can't be perfect on a level if your control pad's fighting you. And now you can use the sticks for a lot of those games too. So you could try that, but that doesn't really feel natural for a lot of those games either. So, you know, there are ways around it. You can just do the electrical tape thing if you want to, or you can get a control pad like this one, which I do recommend. It's great. But, you know, if you're like me and you don't mess around with the innards of a system, wow, like that's a high barrier, you know, honestly. Like I did it because I'd already bought this thing and like I figured, well, I may as well give this a shot. But I feel like I shouldn't have to. Like for a system that specializes in these games, that control pad should work. Like that, I mean, it should be like top notch. Whatever else isn't, like that needs to be top notch. Again, the buttons that came on the system were fine. I just added these in here because they match. You know, unfortunately, these don't have any markings on them, but, you know, since the controls for the various systems aren't uniform anyway, I don't know how much it matters. I did order some stickers so I could put on there just so I can kind of differentiate for myself. But, you know, they work great. It was kind of a pain in the butt to change these out. Some people will be no problem. For me, you know, again, I don't do this very much, so it was kind of scary and a pain to do. I don't like that very much. Now, connecting to this to the TV is not too bad at all. Again, you need a mini HDMI to plug in there, but if you have that, it seems to work just great. And what I like about this system is that the HDMI or the video out is not the USB-C that you use for charging. So you don't have to get any kind of special like pass-through adapter thing if you want to charge and play at the same time. You can charge it, you can do the video out, and that's fine. So no issue as far as that goes. All right, sorry if I had a little jump there. I had to run and help the kids with something. But as far as battery life goes, you know, they claim 8 hours of gameplay, and it's going to depend on the system you're using and whatnot. I would probably just kind of say 5 to 6. Just to be on the safe side. You know, if you're playing all, you know, in NES games or Game Boy, yeah, you're going to have a long lasting battery. If you're jumping into like the 32-bit systems and like the 3DO or whatever, you're going to drain it faster. I think, you know, again, assuming you're playing a variety of games, I think 5 to 6 hours is to be expected. And that's really pretty good. Now, while we're talking about battery, we need to talk about charging this thing. So it uses a USB-C cable, and that's great. You know, everything pretty much does at this point. However, if you have like you know, like a fast charge kind of thing, it doesn't recognize that. You have to use like the most basic USB charging that you can possibly find in order for this thing to actually charge with it. And I mean, I have those lying around, but a lot of those I've replaced with the faster chargers. So yeah, it's not really great that it can't recognize those chargers. It just doesn't do anything to the system. So yeah, you might need to get an old like phone charger. You can use the one that comes with it. If you know, again, don't connect that cord to like a really fast, you know, charging adapter or what have you. But yeah, I mean, that's what you've got. You're going to have to use kind of an older USB-C charger or a low powered USB-C charger, at least for this to charge, which I think is like a really weird kind of, I don't know, it's a bizarre limitation. I don't know how much it really would have added to the cost for them to allow a faster charger to work. I think that would have been really cool for them to do, but that is not what we have. So there's that. So, you know, I am overall happy with this system. I know I've dinged a lot of things on it. Now that I have adjusted the controls and all that, my other complaints are relatively minor. So I'm going to give this system a score. You know, on this channel, whether we're doing board games or video games, we do a score from 1 to 10. So a 1 is a system that is basically non-functional or is such an aggravating thing to use that I wouldn't want to inflict that on my worst enemy. You know, if it's a 5, it's a totally take it or leave it kind of thing. And if it's a 10, it is either perfect or it's so good that its flaws just don't matter. So that being said, I'm going to give this system a 7. I've heard a lot of reviewers really just glowing over this system. And I understand because it is awesome to play on. And then there's all the ifs. If you change the memory card that they give you, it's good to play on. If you use your own ROMs on your own memory card, it's good to play on. Don't get their pre-made one. If you either mod the controller underneath using the electrical tape, which again, you can find that on YouTube if you want to learn more about that, or you go to the same place I did on Etsy, which I'll try to have a link to in the description down there, and are willing to go in and mess with this thing's guts and change the controller, it's great to play on. I love that it plays the systems that for some reason I have trouble getting my own to do. I love that. It opens up all those games that I really wanted to play. So, that's great. I wish it played like 3DO a little more consistently, but, that's a power issue. It's just what it's going to be. But yeah, there's so many ifs, if you're willing to do these things, if you're willing to pay the extra cost for those things, that it's hard to give this a higher score than a 7. If there was, anything that I consider a real flaw when you're playing the games, it would be a lower score, honestly. But the systems that it's meant to do, it does really well. And so I can't complain about that. It handles them great. So yeah, it's up to you. You have to decide if that's something that you want to do. If you want to go in and mess with the control, or if you're only going to be playing games where maybe that doesn't matter so much. I don't think you're going to avoid too many of those in those older systems, though. I just don't. You're going to run into that issue a lot, and it's going to make those games that are already pretty hard even more frustrating. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think you really have to go in and mess with the controller. I think if I could not do that, I probably would have sold this thing just because it's it wouldn't be playable really in a way that I would find fun. So that's it, 7 out of 10. And, if you're not willing to get in there, then I straight up would not get this. If you want it for PSP games or 3DS, or not 3DS, excuse me, or DS games, I probably wouldn't get this. Everything else does marvelously, but you got to be willing to tinker. That's it. I feel like I've repeated that a million times, but I just feel like I really need to drive it home that, you need to do it if you're going to have this thing. So anyway, that's it. That's my review of the Powkiddy RGB30. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe and click the bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. And until next time, get gaming. All right, you made it to the end of another video. If you want to help the channel out, make sure you like it, subscribe, leave a comment if you can. All these things really help, and make sure you tell friends about us because that would also be fantastic.
Yeah, if you enjoyed that video, you might like this one.
Or this one.
We're also on social media. There's a Facebook group. We're on Twitter/X and Instagram.
Yep, so until next time, we'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.